I'm going to list the 14 disabilities categorized under IDEA using the audio on my webcam that's on my computer. The first out of the 14 is autism. And autism is a developmental disability that significantly affects the verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as social interaction of a child. And it's usually evident before the age of 3. Some characteristics of autism are engaging in repetitive activities and stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change or changes in daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experiences. The term autism doesn't apply if the child is not performing up to par educationally, and that's due because of an emotional disturbance. So they have to be careful about that. Usually children with autism show characteristics before the age of 3, but after the age of 3 they can be diagnosed with it if any of the criteria is satisfied. The second of the 14 is deaf blindness, which is simultaneously having a hearing and visual impairment. Obviously, the combination of both the deafness and blindness causes severe communication and other developmental and educational needs that can't be accommodated using a program for just deafness or just blindness. The third of the 14 is deafness, which is a hearing impairment so severe that a child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing with or without amplification that adversely affects a child's educational performance, so the child cannot hear. The fourth out of the 14 is developmental delay, which is children from birth to age 3 and children from ages 3 through 9. The term developmental delay, as defined by each state, means a delay in one or more of the following areas, which would be a cognitive development, physical development, communicational development, social or emotional development, or a behavioral development. The fifth of the 14 is emotional disturbance, which is a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects a child's educational performance. So one would be an inability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors. So they're not learning, but they're not deaf or blind or sick. Another one would be an inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers. So they're having trouble building connections in their classrooms or holding conversations in their classrooms. Another would be inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. Another would be a general pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression, so they're like always upset or not happy. Another would be a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. The sixth of the 14 is a hearing impairment, which an impairment in hearing, whether permanent or fluctuating, so it could be due to a ear infection or it could be because they permanently cannot hear very well, that negatively affects the child's educational performance, but isn't exactly defined as deafness. The seventh of the 14 is an intellectual disability, which is formerly known as mental retardation. It is significantly sub-average general and intellectual functioning, existing concurrently with deficits in adaptive behavior and manifested during the developmental period that adversely affects a child's educational performance. The eighth of the 14th is multiple disabilities, which is simultaneous impairments such as mental retardation and blindness, mental retardation and orthopedic impairment, which, given the combination of any two, causes severe educational needs that can't be accommodated in a program for one or the other. The 9th of the 14th is an orthopedic impairment, a severe orthopedic impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. The term includes impairments caused by congenital anomaly, impairments caused by diseases like bone tuberculosis, and impairments from other causes like cerebral palsy, amputations, fractures, burns, and that kind of thing. The 10th is listed as other health impairment, which is having limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to the educational environment. That A is due to a chronic or acute health problem such as asthma, ADD, diabetes, epilepsy, lead poisoning, leukemia, and B, it has to negatively affect the child's educational performance. The 11th of the 14th is specific learning disability, and that is a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. The term includes such conditions as a brain injury, dyslexia. It doesn't include learning problems that are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor disabilities or mental retardation. The 12th of the 14th is speech or language impairment, which is a communication disorder. This could include impaired articulation, stuttering, language impairments or barriers, or a voice impairment. And of course, they have to negatively affect a child's educational performance. The 13th of the 14 is a traumatic brain injury, which is an acquired injury to the brain caused by external physical force, resulting in total or partial functional disability or psychosocial impairment, or both of them, that negatively affects the child's educational performance. This term applies to open or closed head injuries, resulting in impairments in cognition, language, attention, memory, abstract thinking, problem solving, motor abilities, psychosocial behavior, and speech. The term does not apply to brain injuries that are congenital or degenerative, or to brain injuries induced by birth trauma. The 14th and the last is a visual impairment including blindness, which is an impairment in vision that, even with correction, adversely affects a child's educational performance. The term includes both partial sight and blindness. And that is the 14 disability categories under IDEA.